I'm Davis. I am a family law attorney out here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. We're out here in Gilbert, and just coming to you today to talk a little bit more about family law issues. So the goal of our firm is to help people make it through their case without screwing up their kids. Obviously, there's a lot of different aspects to those, and so we're just here to help you out with that. We try to do these question and answer situations or sessions every Thursday evening around 6 o'clock. Obviously, we're getting started just a little bit later than normal here. We had a few technical difficulties that we were working through, but we try to do these every Thursday night. You're welcome to join us. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat and we'll try to get to those. Let's see. I don't know if we, yeah. Anyway, so we'll try to get to those just as soon as we can, and yeah, we'll go through that. So, just so you know, the information that we cover in here is not legal advice. The reason it's not legal advice is primarily because your situation is unique to you, and so it's better to get legal advice about what you should do in your specific situation by talking to a lawyer about your specific situation. So the information that we cover in here is a general nature. The goal is to help you kind of like have an idea of like what the process is. And if you do have more questions about what you should do in your specific case, you're welcome to get in contact with us, and we're happy to set up a time to meet with you about that and kind of go over some actual strategy for your case. So you can do that by just giving us a call, checking us out on the website, or even just if you have a question, you want to message us on Facebook or any of the social media methods, we're happy to talk to you there. So and yeah, if you wouldn't mind liking and sharing the post, that just helps us kind of like be able to get this message out to people. That'd be great. So we're going to get started today with a discussion on direct examination. So last week we were talking about trial tips, things that you should do and not do if you're getting ready for trial. And this week we're basically just talking about some more trial tips. So things that you can do that are going to help you get a better result when you get to trial. So today we're talking about direct examination. So for starters, the difference between direct examination and cross-examination is that direct examination is you putting on your own case, right? So it's you putting on your own evidence, it's you putting on your own witnesses, it's you just kind of going through your material. Cross-examination is where you get to kind of attack or go over the other side's evidence or the other side's witnesses, and do things like that. One of the defining characteristics of direct examination is that you are going to use your direct examination to kind of present your story. Now, if you're representing yourself and you are going to testify, the court is not going to expect you to ask questions to yourself and then once you've asked questions to yourself, then to respond to that. That's not the expectation. So what the court's actually going to do is they're going to basically they're going to say, hey, go ahead and just talk to us, tell us what you want us to know. If you do have a lawyer, your lawyer is going to go through and they're going to ask you questions about what it is that you should do, what it is, like kind of walk you through, hey, what's your name, what is it that you do, what's the situation, how long have you been married, or are you the father of these kids, or are you the mother of these kids, questions like that. So direct examination is intended to just kind of elicit your story, right? Like to kind of get this information out. It's not intended to attack anything. So one of the things, kind of the hallmark of direct examination, is it tends to be kind of like open-ended questions, like what happened when this happened, right? So one of the things that you should remember about direct examination is that as you're preparing your thoughts about direct examination, this is really your chance to kind of build up your case, right? To kind of help you to build up your case, to strengthen what it is that you're doing. What it's not is it's not totally the time to kind of attack another person's position, right? And we're going to go into some of like the specifics and at least some simplified theory for you on what can be helpful. But that's kind of what direct is. Also, we're not covering cross-examination tonight. Cross-examination is a totally different thing. That's where you're going to like cross-examine the other side and kind of get into sort of that, like, I'm going to call it attack, but cross-examination is really about attacking the other person's position, right? Like, so you say, okay, I've laid out my position, 1, 2, 3. They laid out their position, 1, 2, 3. So when it comes right down to it, how is it that I show the judge that my one is better than their one? Those kinds of things. And that's cross-examination. We're not doing that tonight. We're just doing direct. So a couple thoughts on direct. When you're doing direct examination, the best thing that you can do is basically outline for yourself what it is that you want to cover, right? So this is true if you're talking about custody matters. This is true if you're talking about like property matters. This is true if you're talking about splitting up debts, going over sole and separate property. If you have a house, you want to have an outline for every specific subsection of your case, right? So whether this is a divorce or a custody matter, or it's a modification, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, you want to have you want to have a subsection that, when you're doing your direct examination, that you are going to cover that point, right? So take, for example, let's do just a normal divorce case, right? So you have a house that you're going to have to figure out. You have some other assets, you have some debts, and we'll just throw in kids for good measure, right? So what you'd want to do in your direct examination is you'd want to get to the house. Now, whether you do that first or last, that's up to you. I have more thoughts about that, but that's for a different day. But if what you want to do is you want to get to whatever your topic area is. Okay, we're going to talk about the house, right? And then you talk about the house, you put in your points on the house, you put in your evidence about the house, you tell the judge what you want about the house, and then you move on, right? So direct examination is just, again, it's just building up and framing your case so that the judge understands what it is that you want and why it is that you want it, right? And then you should be doing that for every single piece of the case. So, rather than just kind of standing up there and rambling, which is what a lot of people do, you should have a very structured presentation. And this is something that if you prepare ahead of time, you're going to come across way, way, way more prepared. And when you're more prepared, you're able to give the judge what the judge needs to make a decision, right? So what I would start out with is every single piece of your case that you have that. Now, pieces of the case are the big pieces of the case, right? A house, personal property. What it's not is you don't need to do this whole presentation on who gets the dining room table, right? Unless that's super important to you. But even then, you need to fit it into this, real properties here, so we're going to do this. Personal properties here, so we're going to do this. Kids are here, so we're going to do this, right? The whole goal is just structure it so that it's easier for people to understand, and so that when the judge is listening to this, the judge can say, okay, I understand where you're going here. I understand what your argument is, and then move on from there. When you're doing kid stuff, part of your structured presentation is really going to be along the lines of the same thing that we've talked about before, but it's the Arizona state statutes that outlines the different factors for how the court determines what plan they're going to select, right? So what you do is you say, okay, I know that you're going to talk about the relationship between parent and child. So you're going to make sure that you present evidence on that. Now, if you're in a time-limited situation where, let's say the court gives you an hour and you've got a house, personal property, some debts, some kid stuff, and so you only have 30 minutes, half of the hour to present your case, you still need to do the same thing, but you're going to need to do it faster, right? And all I mean by faster is just you don't need to go into the same level of detail. That's where really preparation ahead of time with a quality pretrial statement, things like that are going to help you out. But when it comes to your direct examination, you're just going to cover these points just faster, using the same model. So whether that's property, spousal maintenance, debts, kid stuff, anything like that, you're just going to go faster. So here's a relatively simple outline that I think will help when you're putting together your thoughts for the court about what it is that you want, right? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to outline your position, right? So number one, outline your position. And outlining your position can be as simple as saying, okay, Judge, I want to talk about the house. My position on the house is that I want to buy out my spouse. And so, I'll refinance the house. I'll take it into my name. I'm going to need 4 months to do it. So if you give me, 4 months or 6 months, whatever it is, to refinance the house in my name, I will buy out my spouse's share of the equity and go from there, right? Or it might be, I want to sell the house. Okay, so that's step one. What is your position? And that's really important because if nothing else, you want to make sure that the judge understands what it is that you want the judge to order, right? So if for some reason there's some misconception or there's a lack of clarity on what it is that you want, by stating your position first and foremost, what you're going to do is you're going to clarify for the judge, this is what I want you to do. Okay. And if it's complicated, just say, hey, judge, this is complicated and here's why, right? So maybe what you want to do is you want to buy out your spouse's share of the equity, but you want to do that by doing, by sharing a larger percentage of a 401k or by dividing up a savings account. So what you want to do, as clearly as possible, you want to spell out what it is that you want. Now, one way to test out if you have clearly defined what it is that you want is go through every issue. Write out what it is that you want the judge to do. Just this first one, right? You're not arguing about anything. You're just explaining, this is what I want you to do. And then sit down with someone who doesn't necessarily know you, right? Or I mean, they know you enough that this would be a comfortable conversation, but they don't necessarily know the ins and outs of your situation, so that they can kind of like interject their own thoughts into it. But what you want to do is you want to tell them, hey, look, this is, I want to keep the house and I want to buy out my spouse's share of the equity, but I want to give my spouse the entire savings account, which is, normally I'd have, we're just going to make up numbers here, right? $100,000 left on the $100,000 house. So each of us is entitled to $50,000 worth of the equity in the house. I want to give my spouse the entire $100,000 savings account because I want to take that from the house, right? So you want to practice saying this in a way that it's like clear what it is that you want to do. And the greatest test that you can do is find someone who doesn't know you, that can't interject their own thoughts into it, and say, this is what I want you to order. And if they say, oh yeah, totally understand that, I get that, and that makes sense, right? That's enough. Okay. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to point out, this is the evidence that supports my position, right? So let's use kid stuff because I think that's easy, right? So number one is, my position is I want the kids 50-50, right? I want to have a 50-50 custody relationship with my spouse. And so number two is, this is the evidence that supports my position. So if we're talking about kid stuff and we're going through those ARS, the revised statutes, factors, and so you're saying, okay, my relationship with the kids is really solid, right? Like, this is how I know that we have a really good relationship. And you can talk about like the things that you've done together, the kind of relationship that you've had, like the evidence that supports it, that you have, maybe this is a modification and you've remarried and so now you're trying, hey, look, my new spouse has a great relationship with the kids, whatever it is that you want to present, but you're talking about like, what is it that really, what evidence exists to show that you are, that this is going well, right? So the third thing that you're going to do is you're going to introduce exhibits. Okay. So for instance, let's talk about like debts, right? So you could say, Judge, I want you to split up these debts 50-50, or maybe you say, Judge, I want to split up these debts where I take 20 and my spouse takes 80, right? Yeah, whatever your position is. Then you can explain, this is why I want you to do this, right? This is the evidence that supports it. And number three is you're going to introduce exhibits. So these exhibits are going to be the things that help illustrate it. So when you're talking about, like, say, debt in this example, you want to use an exhibit that's going to be able to show how much debt you have, right? So here's the billing statement from the credit card. Boom, right there. It says on the bottom, we have $10,000 worth of credit card debt, right? So that is the number. And that's going to be helpful for the judge, because when the judge is trying to figure out how much to allocate to which person, if you have that in evidence, hey, like, I have this exhibit, it's worth $10,000. There you go. By the way, we will cover how to get in exhibits in a different Facebook Live or live session. I guess we're live everywhere now. So, but we'll cover how to get exhibits in a different session. So the fourth thing that you want to, let's finish the exhibits first. But like when you're talking about exhibits, you want to put in as many exhibits as you need to be able to illustrate your point, but not so many exhibits that just say the same thing over and over, right? For instance, if you're talking, and I say that because sometimes we're talking about like, um, relationships with kids, right? And let's say that you went around and you found 30 people who all want to say, that you're a great person, you're a great mom, you're a great dad, whatever it is. I mean, so you find 30 people that all say, man, like this person is really an amazing parent, they're a great mom, they're a great dad. I want to support them, right? If you're on a limited amount of time and you're trying to put in 30 letters, right, one by one. Okay, this is a letter from Steve and he says that I'm great, and this is a letter from Sally and she says that I'm great, and this is a letter from my second grade teacher and they think I'm great, right? Like, you're going to get to the point where it's just sort of repetitive, right? So you need to introduce exhibits that are helpful without introducing too many exhibits that like just start to get repetitive and you're just covering the same ground. If you want to attack things from different angles and you want to kind of put it in, make sure that you highlight for the judge when you're putting in that exhibit, like, this is why this particular exhibit is important. This is why this particular exhibit is important. And maybe it covers 90% of the same material. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to highlight, okay, this is the key part of this exhibit. This is the key part of this exhibit. This is the key part of this exhibit. And even though they are a lot the same, there's enough differences that it's worthwhile for you to really kind of like put in these exhibits into evidence, right? Again, we'll talk about exhibits on a different day. We'll save that because that's more technical in nature. So the fourth thing that you want to do when you're presenting your direct examination is you want to address what you know is going to be a potential objection, right? So you've stated your position, so the judge knows exactly what you want to do. You've stated why you should win, or why this is good. You've presented whatever evidence that you know of that supports your position. And then the fourth thing you're going to want to do is that if this is a contested issue, right? Like if you're asking for the house to be sold and your spouse doesn't want it to be sold, they're going to say something, right? And chances are pretty good probably what it is they're going to say, right? Maybe they don't want the house to be sold because they want to live in the house and they want that to be a home base for the kids. Okay, totally fair, right? That's a reasonable reason to think. So you have to explain why it is that that's not a good idea, right? So judge, like, I want the house to be sold and this is why it supports it. And here's the exhibits. This tells you exactly how much equity we have in the house. And I know that my spouse wants to keep this, but if my spouse keeps this, there's no way that they're going to be able to afford to make the mortgage payments on this, and they can't refinance in their name, and so that leaves me kind of on this mortgage without a hope of without being able to get off of it, right? So if I want to move on, if I want to buy a house, if I want to qualify for certain things, I'm unable to do so under this current arrangement, right? So you want to make sure that you're addressing the objections. And the reason you want to do that in your direct examination is, especially if you're going first, right? You get a chance to kind of define the other side, right? So like the other side says, hey, look, like these are our issues and they're going to hit you real hard on these issues. So you want to just kind of define it for the judge. Hey, look, like I know they're going to say this and this is why that shouldn't work, right? Okay. Don't spend too much on this is not where you spend a ton of your time. This is just intended, because again, this is direct examination. This is building up your case. You're going to have a chance. You're probably going to have a chance to attack their case. So just start off by just simply saying like, okay, this is my case. This is why it's important. This is why I think I should win. Okay. Now, the fifth thing you're going to do is you're going to reiterate your position, right? Just to make sure that the court understands, hey, look, this is what I want. This is why I want it. These are the documents, text messages, screenshots, bank statements, whatever the exhibits are that support my position. This is what I think they're going to say. And even knowing that that's what they're going to say, this is what I want you to do, right? And if you're able to do that, on each of these issues, whether it's the house, the debts, the cars, the assets, the kids, whatever it is, if you're able to do those 5 things, just kind of like, walk through and boom, there you go. That's going to help the judge feel like they have all the information that they need in order to make a good decision, right? And that's really the key, is just what is it, does the judge have enough information to believe that they are making a good decision in your case? um I mean, like, obviously this could be as deep as you want it to be. It could be as like inch thick as you want it to be. But at the end of the day, that's really the questions, right? The judge is going to have to make a decision. That's the judge's job. So if you're at trial and you're trying to present your case, did you give them enough information? Did you explain what it is you want to happen? Because chances are, if you explain really well what it is that you want to happen, if both of you are unrepresented, right? If neither of you has an attorney, there's a really good chance that, like, everything you're going to talk about, like, or everything that most people talk about when they get in there, is totally worthless, right? I mean, you're just spending time on nothing. So rather than doing that, if you come in prepared and you just hit those 5 things, just boom, 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 five, like 5 things, the judge is going to be like, thank you, right? Like, I appreciate that. And when the judge has clarity and they know what it is that you want and what evidence there is to support you, chances are better that you're going to get what you want. So that's kind of all we have for today. Again, this is this is something we do every Thursday, or at least most Thursdays. Next week we have something really exciting. I have a lawyer coming on. He's going to be interviewed. He is an expert in like wills and trusts and things like that, and can talk to us basically about like how like that kind of area of law intersects with family law, and when it's important to do all those things, and how it is that you can do all these things, and some of the things that people just don't think about, but they should when they're going through like a family law case. So super excited to have him. His name's Jake Carlson. He's going to be on next week with us. In the meantime, if you do have questions that you want us to work on or answer, feel free to reach out. So our phone number is 480-435-9999. You can reach out by email. You can go to the website. The website has a chat bot that you can kind of ask us some questions, and then hop on there. And then, obviously you can message us here on social media, and we're happy to talk to you there. So we do this every Thursday night, or we're happy to help. And hopefully you guys have a great week, and we will see you next week.